Director and an owner at Barnsley Football Club, and Neerav Parekh, Chairman at Barnsley Football Club. Thank you very much, and I'll just hand straight over to Steve.
Everyone, and thank you for coming along to today's announcement. 21 years ago, in 2003, the council acquired 50% of the assets at Oakwell alongside Patrick Cryne. We created a company called Oakwell Community Assets, and the purpose of that was a significant contribution to protecting professional football in Barnsley. And over the last 20 years, that deal has proved hugely successful for the town, for the club, and obviously for the council itself. Towards the end of last year, the council has now acquired from the Cryne family the other 50%, so we are now 100% shareholder in Oakwell Community Assets, and therefore the site ultimately is in the council's ownership. And the reason we have done that is fourfold. First of all, we wanted to sit down with the football club and try and secure a long-term lease to protect professional football in Barnsley for years to come. Secondly, we wanted to make sure in doing that we protected a valued business in Barnsley. Barnsley Football Club helps bring around £22 million a year into the local economy, employing over 200 people. Reds in the community now, Barnsley FC Community Trust, they contribute around £10 million into the local community. We wanted to ensure that those organisations succeed and thrive into the future. The third reason we wanted to extend our involvement was to protect the town centre and the £250 million development that you can see in and around the glassworks. That, again, has been incredibly successful. But what we didn't want to see at any time in the future was a competitive development in this part of town that could undermine that. So in securing this site and gaining control, we can ensure that the town centre and the glassworks goes from strength to strength. That is really important, that major investment we made continues to be able to be successful. And then the fourth reason we wanted to get further involved is because this is a major site right on the edge of Barnsley Town Centre. It could be used for many uses, as I've already described. But we've got the football club here and we've got Barnsley Premier Leisure here, again, who are a major contributor to the borough and to the town. And one thing we want to do is to sit down with the football club, sit down with Barnsley Premier Leisure and look at what the opportunities are, not just for the ground, but the site as a whole in furthering sport and cultural activities for Barnsley. That would be a huge complementary series of activities to the town centre, but would clearly continue to help make Barnsley a major visitor destination. It would also, by giving the council control, give us the ability to maximise not just the opportunity, but to maximise benefit to local residents, particularly those who live near the ground. We'll be able to sit down now and look at things like access, egress to the site and many other issues at the same time. So this is a major step forward, I think, not just for the council, but for the town. But of course, the biggest thing we want to announce today is that we've been successful in our negotiations with the club, and the club have now signed a new 30-year lease to remain at Oakwell. That's great news for the fans, that's great news for the club, it's great news for Barnsley as a place, because we know how much value that club brings economically, sporting-wise, and it puts Barnsley on the map. There's no question about that. So to have that 30-year deal can give everyone the assurance and comfort that they need. You will know under certain previous owners that had been in doubt, and we can now put that to bed, and the club and ourselves can sit down, as I say, and think about that long-term future. I'm incredibly grateful to the Cryne family for their support and contribution they've made to that by working with us as a council, and obviously very grateful to the new chairman, Neerav. Well, he's not that new these days, but anyway, for his help and support in the club being part of, first of all, getting the new lease, which gives us the security we want, but also willing to sit down with us and, as I say, looking at this 30-acre plus site as to how we can develop it for the benefit of the club, obviously, but for the benefit of residents and the town on a more wider basis, as I've already described. So this is a major step forward, not just for the football club, but for the borough and the town as a whole. And we think this is something worth celebrating today. There's a lot of hard work in front of us, but no doubt we can come through that. Some people may say to us, well, will we be investing in the site? What's it going to cost the taxpayers? Inevitably. What I can say is part of our agreement with the club is that any income we receive as the landlord will be reinvested back in the site. So this is a cost-neutral deal. The new lease is a cost-neutral deal to the council and taxpayers. We won't be putting any additional funds in, but clearly the club then know that what it does in terms of its contributions to the lease will come back in benefit in other forms. So that's good for them, that's good for us, and obviously it's good for wider taxpayers. So from my perspective, it's a win-win all round for everyone in the borough. So without any further ado, just to say, really pleased to be here, really good day for everyone concerned, and I'll now hand you over to Jean.
Really? So I echo everything that Sir Steve has said today and thank him for his continued support. We have built, I hope, a good relationship with the council, and hopefully that will get even stronger. I would like to give a shout out to Patrick for first of all saving the club and having the foresight to put the ground in a 50-50 split with the council, and now it has, I hope, a secure future. All of this is done for this town, for Barnsley, for my hometown, and I have to tell you, the adopted and loved town of our directors, Neerav and Julianne and James. James being born in Cheshire, not in Yorkshire. Neerav and Julianne have such busy lives, yet they give so much of their passion and time to the football club. Their energy and enthusiasm is to be admired. Thank you for all the advice and encouragement. We are lucky to have you as partners. The club and council are also working closely with the BFC Community Trust in building strong community links. I know this is something Sir Steve is very keen on. The Trust has a wonderful team and a hands-on group of trustees. They help so many people within our community. I hope the fans can see and appreciate what the club, the manager and his team, the academy and their team, the women's coach and her team, and the players and staff are all trying to do on and off the pitch for Barnsley FC. You have a council who have built a wonderful new town, a town to be proud of. The football club is part of that. The staff and directors want only the best for you and the fans. I really want and need to encourage all our fans to bring more supporters into the ground. We need to back the players on the pitch. They need to hear the positive, and let's get rid of the negative. Can I just add that we are thinking of Patrick from yesterday. It was 6 years to the day that we lost him. Thanks.
Well, Sir Steve and Jean have made it easy for me. I think all that remains for me is to really thank them for their efforts in making this happen. Sir Steve, obviously, since the sort of change in ownership and the change in the board, has been relentless in trying to repair the relationship between the council and the club, and I'm happy that it's culminated in this new lease. And Jean, I don't think there's enough I can say to thank Jean, Patrick and James for what they've done for the club and the town. Jean was obviously wearing two hats as a 50% owner in Oakwell and an owner of the club. Getting a lease signed in these situations would have been very difficult. Unselfishly, she made sure she sold a stake to the council. I'm glad the land sits with the council now, because no matter who the future owners are, the asset will sit with Barnsley Council for the benefit of Barnsley people. Jean unselfishly did this. She sold her stake and made this happen. But also, she's covered this, but just a moment to remember Patrick. One day after the 6-year anniversary of his passing, I think this is probably what he'd have wanted for the club, for Barnsley Football Club to remain in Barnsley. Sir Steve alluded to this, but all the tosh that had come up over the last few years about ground sharing, moving away from Barnsley, I'm very glad to see that for the next at least 3 decades, ideally longer, Barnsley Football Club stays in Barnsley and at Oakwell, which is his home. And I'm really glad we've managed to get this over the line. So thank you everyone for your efforts to make this happen.
So now we will do a quick photo opportunity with the lease. So if photographers would like to come forward, we'll just do a quick photo of everyone signing the lease, and then we'll go to questions from the floor. Has everyone got the opportunity they want to take a photo in here? Yeah. So now we'll take questions from the floor. So if anyone would like to kick us off, just wait for the mic to come to you, just for the audio, and then we will begin the press conference.
Have you got any plans yet to develop anywhere in the ground or even the West End?
Funny, I knew the West End had come up somewhere. As part of the due diligence we've looked at, we know if we properly maintain the West End, there's at least another 10 years life in that. Now what that does is give us time to think about the future of that part of the ground without making any hasty judgments as to what's required. But what we do want to do is not just look at the ground itself, is look at the whole area. To see how we can develop this in a sporting sense, not just football but other sporting activities and other cultural activities. What does that require? How can the ground contribute to that, as well as obviously contributing to the well-being of the football club going forward? So we've agreed a memorandum of understanding between the council and the club, with Barnsley Premier Leisure as well, that we'll sit down in the months and years ahead and work through the detail of that. So no immediate plans. There may be some short-term investments in terms of maintenance and other things that are required. But in terms of developing the ground, that's for the longer term. And as I say, this is cost neutral to the council. What we've agreed to do is use all the income we get from this site and reinvest that back in. And again, we need to look at what's the best way of reinvesting that income. There are different options. So still a lot of work to be done. But what today does is give us that security for the next 30 years that we can do those things. And that should be hugely beneficial to everyone involved.
What are the sort of short-term things that you would like to change in terms of maintenance? And in the past, it's been talked about sort of creating a fan zone and other things like that. Is that on the short-term agenda to implement?
Well, again, we need to sit down with the club. Some of this is about general maintenance, whether it's renewing electrics or other things. Not very exciting, but crucial to making sure the ground's fit for purpose and can do the job that it wants to do. Obviously, we want to look at how we can improve the experience for fans and others. So whether that's a fan zone or there's other activities can be done. Again, we rule nothing out. But as I say, at this stage, we're not sat down with hard plans. We just want to work that through with the club.
I appreciate that. But is there a possibility for sort of other sport? Boxing's been mentioned here, concerts and stuff like that. Is that something that's possible?
Of course. Now we need to look at how you do that, what the implications of visitor numbers. We've got to think about local residents here and the impact that has as well. What's the cost of doing those things? What's the return on those investments? So yes, Barnsley Town Centre has a lot of great assets, but it doesn't have a particularly big venue where you can put big events on. Well, clearly we've got one here. So the question then becomes, what are those opportunities and how do we make them work?
I know you won't want to go into much of the details of this, but I'm sure fans will be wondering how much sort of will be invested into the ground. Is it hundreds, thousands, millions? Can you give us an idea?
Well, it's the 30 years income from that. So that income could vary. What I can say, I think, whilst that's a commercial deal, the better the club does, the more income we get. So it's in everyone's interest the club succeeds, because that then gives us more money to reinvest back in the facility. So there could be some variation in that over time. But again, whatever that may be, it's looking at what are the possibilities, because it isn't just income from the club or the council or the deal we've struck. It's looking at funding opportunities from other organisations. So the football industry has opportunities to get grants. We as a council have opportunities to get grants from government and other sources. So I suspect as we move this thing forward, you'll see a range of funding organisations getting involved, not just the primary participants.
To all of you, why was 30 years lighted on, and is there a possibility to extend it once it gets towards the end of that?
Well, we certainly hope so. I suspect in 30 years you'll be looking at 3 different people than you are today. But 30 years is standard for a commercial deal of this type. So that's why it's 30 years. But obviously we hope those that will come after us will extend that. And if we can make a success of this going forward, I'm sure extending the lease won't be a problem. But as I say, that will be for people who come later.
You mentioned, obviously, there's been stories about potentially the previous chairman talking about moving the club away. I mean, for the council, how was that worrying when you heard that? And was that a factor in wanting to sort of sort this out?
Of course it was. Oakwell has been here since 1887. The club was founded. We've played our games here. So it's not just that sort of cultural and passionate link to football. This is a major business in Barnsley. It attracts visitors from all over the country. It puts Barnsley on the map every time there's a game, and sometimes when there isn't a game. It creates huge interest in the town. It's one of our best advertisements we have. It employs over 200 people. It's contributing 22 million to the local economy. Barnsley FC Community Trust, again, that's making a massive social impact as well as sporting impact in Barnsley. That operates from this site. We need to make these things secure, and then we need to give them opportunity to grow and develop into the future. So that's the ambition. There's a big impact here with Barnsley Football Club, and as I say, when we heard there were threats to move it away, this is a family audience, isn't it? So be careful what I say. But we weren't too pleased to hear that. And we did try to engage with the previous leadership of the club. Unfortunately, that didn't prove too successful. But it's great now that that's changed. We've got a different approach entirely from the club, who want to be part of what we're trying to do in Barnsley. You've seen the glassworks and everything that's created. We can do that again on this site in different ways. Those two things together, we're already on the map in Barnsley. But people want to be here even more. So fantastic opportunity it creates, not just for the town centre, but for the whole of the borough.
Last question for me, when the Cryne family sold it in 2017, I remember the press conference here, the plan was for the club itself to eventually acquire the whole stadium. What was obviously it's different people involved now, but what's been the change? Why has it been a change over the years since then?
Jean, do you want to?
No.
I think it's pretty simple. I think what we've realized over the last 7 years is sometimes it's going to be good actors, sometimes bad, and we might not be custodians of the club forever. So I think it's best that the asset sits with the council, sits with the people of Barnsley. It's just the safest outcome.
I mean, I think what we can say, none of us are getting any younger, including me. And speaking to Jean and her family, want to protect this asset for the long term. And what was the best way of doing that? Do you keep that yourselves? You don't know what might happen to the club itself. We were there to say we want to protect this asset for the next 30 years and beyond. And I'm really pleased Jean was prepared to sit down and talk with us on how best to do that. So if anything's changed, I think we're all thinking, we've been through a difficult period as a club, let's be honest. Let's put that behind us. Let's get some security now around where the club's at, where it's based, what can be achieved, working in partnership with the council, with Barnsley Premier Leisure, who are a massive influence on this borough and a key player that we need to work alongside. And then the opportunity, I think, not just for the town but for the club itself, is much better than it would have been otherwise.
Any more questions just before we wrap up? No? Great. So now the plan is for any media wanting to do one-on-ones, TV will take you pitch side, and then the written press was doing here. So yeah, it'll be in here for the written, pitch side for the TV, we'll take it down now.
Thank you.